So this is Grandview Park. I haven't been here for 30 years. This is a beautiful place to be, but this place holds no good memories. Most people don't know what happened. Tony and I and some friends were here over 30 years ago having a picnic on the hillside, and they headed down that hillside into these woods onto that path. I stayed behind. I didn't really want to see a place where someone was murdered. The experience of being with Tony Feibiger, it is like a permanent tattoo without the ink. That name I will forever remember for very bad reasons. Who walks around and thinks possibly my husband's a serial killer and my boyfriend? You don't. That's not even in the realm of rational thinking. It is just such a sickening wow. And I feel like, okay, how many of my coworkers and everyone's going to see this and say, Sharon, what were you thinking? But I'm telling you, it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was studying to be a nurse. I was commuting back and forth from my parents' house to school. I wanted my own apartment. I found an apartment. The bottom apartment was empty for a while, maybe 2-3 months, and then Anthony Feibiger moved in. Coming home from school, coming home from work, he would be outside setting up a grill, and he would say hello, I would say hello, and we just started talking. That's how we got to know each other.
You want a beer?
Yeah, why not?
He wasn't very attractive. He was overweight. After talking to him over and over and over, he seemed to become funnier to me, become more relaxed, having casual conversation, and before I know it, we were hanging out more and more. Tony and I dated for a while, several months. Next thing you know, we were living together. I hadn't really dated anyone seriously prior to this, just minor high school boyfriends. So he secured my trust pretty quickly. He was waiting for me every day after work, after school. He would always hold my hand. He would always open doors. So in the beginning, he appeared to be the perfect boyfriend. Maybe the 4th or 5th time that we spoke, sitting outside eating dinner, I had asked him why he had moved all the way out here.
You, never told me why you ended up moving out here.
It's kind of a sore subject.
And he had said that he had to give up his prior apartment because he lived there with his former girlfriend, Norma, and that she had suddenly disappeared.
What happened?
He said, just very matter-of-fact, calmly said, oh, she was in the drug scene. All her friends, drinkers, using drugs. She would come and go all hours of the day and night, and I guess just one day she just decided she didn't want to be with me anymore, so she just left with her friends and never came back. And he also made a point of mentioning, oh, and she left her purse, her wallet, her keys, everything was just left. She just literally never came back.
I mean, she just vanished.
That's so crazy.
I questioned it initially. Who leaves their personal things as a woman? He attributed to that's what people do when you just hang out with people that do drugs and drink alcohol. You just get tired of it, or you find someone else to move on with, and you just leave.
Did the cops get involved or anything?
Oh, yeah.
He also went on a little further to say, I had nothing to do with it because the police did question me. The police did come over. The police even gave me a lie detector test.
It was a nightmare.
But I passed it. He said I had nothing to do with her disappearance. Looking back, that's absolutely a red flag. Wow, a big flag. Relatively sheltered, I've never dealt with having anyone disappear out of my life, so I just believed him.
It's crazy.
He had a way of just dismissing any questions that you might have had about his past or about him. Just saying, oh, it's nothing. Oh, it's no big deal. And I think when you're young, you believe that. This is the first time I've seen what Norma actually looks like. Missing woman being sought. Miss Parker is a black female with light skin, dark hair, and brown eyes who stands 5'3" and weighs 130 pounds. So she was quite small, and certainly no match for Tony. Didn't deserve what happened to her. He was able to not only murder someone, but he did get away with it for quite some time. Initially, I didn't think he had anything to do with her disappearance. However, certain people would make references to it when we would go around them, and they seemed to still have suspicions. We were out driving one day, and we happened to drive by his cousin's house who lived in that general vicinity. His cousin was standing outside, so we pulled up, and Tony rolled the window down and said, "Hey, how you doing?"
Hey, what's up, cuz?
And the cousin said, "Don't come around here, don't speak to me.
Understand me. I want nothing to do with you.
These people have been coming here every day asking me questions about that drum. I don't want you to talk to me, come around me, nothing. I'm sick of these people coming to my house asking me questions." Tony was telling him, like, "Hey, settle down." He said, "It's not what you think. It'll be all right. It's okay. There was nothing going on." But cousin was so angry and so aggressive. He goes, "I don't know what you did, but I've had it. I'm done with you." And walked away.
Get away from this one. You're better off.
I was completely shocked. I didn't know what this was about.
What the hell was that?
And he said, "Oh, that's just him being angry because I didn't pay him enough to help me move."
What container was he talking about?
And he's saying a giant, 55-gallon metal drum. And I thought, why would someone have a drum in their house to begin with? That's an industrial thing.
Well, what was it?
Nothing.
I just assumed that the landlord had maybe stored things in the basement that really weren't Tony's possessions at all. And when Tony moved, he just decided to clear everything out.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
We didn't talk about it any further. Tony's facial expressions sometimes would change when we were together. He'd have these moments where he would just stare off into space, and to look at him looked evil. The stare was blank. There was no smile.
Tony?
Yeah.
Like he was in a constant train of thought of something. I I would say, "What's wrong? What are you thinking about?" He would say, "Nothing, never mind," and just would stare off.
Is everything all right?
Yeah.
No smile, no expression, just a blank stare, very serious. And a lot of times he wouldn't respond when you would say, "What's wrong? Something going on?" He would just stare.
Are you sure everything's all right?
I don't know what he was contemplating during those quiet moments, but looking back, I wonder if those moments where he was trying to control, possibly, the urges that he had to kill someone. In his confession, Feibiger told detectives that he had fantasized almost all his life about killing people, specifically children. He said he has more fantasies about killing than he does about sex. The first person he seriously thought about killing was a girl named Maggie. He was 17 at the time and liked her, but she didn't like him. Feibiger also told police that when he was 18 or 19, he had picked up a female hitchhiker, raped her, and dumped her by the side of the road. That crime apparently was not recorded. This is the first time that I'm reading that he had fantasies about killing children. See this? I have never. Goodness, I can't believe it. Looking back now, at those times that he would be quiet and not speak to me and stare off, I believe he was probably fighting urges to kill me. I don't know exactly what it was that prevented him from acting on those urges to hurt me, and I would just wonder what he would say to that. Did you have those urges to kill when you were with me, and what stopped you? What was it about me? Was it my kindness towards him? Was it my ability to make him feel good rather than inferior? Was it my willingness to let him take control of where we were going, what we were going to do? I am so grateful that I got away when I did. This park just has a bad memory for me. Most people don't know what happened. Tony used to like to be outdoors a lot. He liked to fish, he'd like to hike, he'd always liked to be in parks. And he would have some of the most remote locations with literally no one in sight anywhere. And I used to say, "How did you find this?" And he would say, "Oh, through friends," but they were not like common locations. I thought that was pretty neat at first, but at the same time was kind of creepy in a way because no one was ever around. So one day Tony decided that we should go meet up with some of his friends and go have a picnic. Just sitting there, all of us, he mentioned,
You guys want to hear something creepy?
"Yeah. Hey, down over there," and he pointed to a general area over the hillside. "There's trails, and a girl was found murdered there years prior." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, they never solved her murder. She was just found on the trail murdered."
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
He did not go into details. Real friends we were with said, "Oh yeah, Marcia, I remember."
Yeah, he's right. It was a high school girl.
And they all talked about it like, yeah, it was an unsolved murder. Some high school age girl was just murdered on this trail, and they never found out who did it. And he said, "Do you want to go take a walk down there?"
You guys want to go check it out?
And I said, "No." That's really strange and creepy, no.
Come on, guys, that's sick.
I just found it, shocking and sad, and why would you bring that up at our picnic? But it just seemed as if everybody was ready to stand up and go for a walk, so I stayed behind, but him and several of our friends, they took the hike or walk down, and I stayed back. He came back, we just packed our things and went on with the day. He never brought up Marcia's murder ever again. It never occurred to me or dawned on me at the time. How would he know where exactly she was found? So this is Grandview Park. I haven't been here for 30 years. Up here is where we had a picnic, looking over the hillside, and they headed down that hillside into these woods onto that path. At that time, I thought it was just a casual walk. I had no idea that he was in fact the one that murdered the young girl. This park is a peaceful place, unfortunately marred by Marcia's murder. But I hope that her spirit is free and her family finds comfort knowing that justice has been served. I'm at peace now, being here again 30 years later. And hope that she is too. Throughout our course of dating, Tony decided to introduce me to his mother, Marlene. She was very gracious, kind. She seemed to very much like me. I grew very fond of her. I would go over, she was always baking cookies, and I would sit at her table and we would talk, and she would tell me different little things about Tony. One day I went over Marlene's house to spend some time we had done the prior day or the prior weekend, and I mentioned to her that Tony had taken me to Grandview Park.
It was a great time until Tony scared the hell out of me with some story about a murdered girl out in the woods.
And she said to me, "Oh yes, you know, Sharon, the day that the murder allegedly happened, the night before, she said that Tony was in her house in the middle of the night.
He was acting anxious.
He was in a very hurried, rush state, very excited, very agitated.
He scared me, truly.
And she told him to get out of the house, and he did, but then she later discovered one of her knives was missing. And at that point, she just said to me, "I don't know, Sharon, but I never forgot it. I don't know why he would have taken that, but he was the only one that could have taken that knife."
What are you trying to say?
When she said that to me, I was shocked that she would think that of her own son. I did not believe Tony had anything to do with that. I was just trying to calm and reassure her that I'm sure he had nothing to do with it. That was just my instinct, was just to try to calm her and make her feel better. She did ask me not to say anything to Tony. She told me things in confidence and asked me to keep them to myself. And I honored her wishes and did not ask Tony questions. It just didn't occur to me in my life that I actually knew someone or could know someone that was capable of murder. Anthony Fibiger and Joseph Morton were looking for a woman to rape on a rainy night 16 years ago, and young Marcia Jones was an easy victim. Both men tried to rape her and then took turns beating and kicking her. Fibiger wanted to make sure she was dead. After propping her body up against a tree, he and Morton walked a short distance to Fibiger's home. They found a long steak knife from a kitchen drawer and walked back to the woods. They used it repeatedly, stabbing Jones in the face and neck. They then hid her body under some leaves and weeds. This is the first time I see Marcia Jones. Wow. Just an innocent, carefree high school student. He truly was a sociopath. Can't believe I was with somebody like this. And I didn't have a clue. Just did not have a clue. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and next thing I know, I see Tony coming out of the mall with the police officers, handcuffed, getting into the back of the police car. Before we moved in together, I had no idea that Tony had any interest or knew anything of the martial arts. And he would just say, "Okay, I'm going to practice now. You don't mind, I hope."
You mind if I do some training while you're reading?
Training? And I said, "Oh, no, go ahead." I would read a book or watch TV. And he would stand off to the side and just start practicing twirling and flipping these nunchucks. I was surprised at first because he did not strike me as the martial arts type. He was kind of overweight, he smoked. I was surprised that he knew how to use them. While he would work out with these nunchucks, he would describe to me how you could kill somebody or hurt somebody with the nunchucks.
You know you can kill somebody with a pair of these.
Then he would demonstrate that you could strangle somebody. Showed me the exact way in which you have to get the victim to be able to be successful.
Wrap it around their neck and just squeeze the life out of them?
I didn't necessarily think that was really true. It just never crossed my mind that someone would actually use that to kill somebody with. I later found out that he had strangled Norma with those nunchucks. Looking back, seeing myself sitting there on the couch staring at him, I would have never believed that if you did something like that, that you would readily talk about it, when in fact, you actually did it. While we were dating, there were times that Tony would disappear for 2 or 3 days at a time. He would just never come home. We didn't have phones back then, cell phones, so the only way I could possibly try to find him would be to call his job or call his mom or call his friends.
Have you seen Tony?
I would say, "Hey, was he around? Did you go anywhere?" And they would say, "No, he wasn't with us." So he literally would disappear somewhere.
If you could just let me know if you've seen him, okay?
I never really looked to see if the nunchucks were missing. It's just not something that crossed my mind to look for. When he got back, he would tell me, "Oh, I just went fishing for 2 days up at the lake. You know, that place I took you."
What the hell?
What?
His explanation to me was, "I just like to get away and be by myself, go camping, fishing, and those are times I want to be alone." He said everybody deserves their own private time.
Got me completely freaked out over here.
Honey, I'm sorry.
Up to that point, we had spent pretty much every waking hour with each other, so I felt like, okay, maybe this is true. Maybe people do need some downtime, so I believed it.
Keep me posted next time?
In retrospect, I don't know really what he was doing. I absolutely wonder if he wasn't out hurting someone else. I don't think I ever will know what he was doing. And I don't necessarily know if I want to find out either, knowing what I know. started getting up every day in the morning, cooking breakfast for both of us before we would get ready to go off to work. And I started noticing sandwich bags laying on the counter of pills, different kinds, different shapes. I would say, "What is this?" And he would always say, "Oh, they're just downers, or they're just uppers. I just feel tired today, or I just needed to relax last night." At first, it didn't concern me because there wasn't a lot of them, but after several weeks, it just seems like it became more and more consistent. And then he started getting in trouble at work. He was stealing from stores. These things that he started to do ended in several arrests. One day, we had to take a ride to Kmart. I sat in the car, he went in, and a period of time passed, and he never came back out. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and with the police officers, handcuffed. I was absolutely devastated. I mean, I was almost to the point of hysterics because I have never seen anybody I know in handcuffs before being arrested. I didn't know exactly what he had done. I just jumped over into the driver's seat and drove myself home. I wasn't as happy anymore as I used to be. Do I leave him? Do I stay? This is starting to get ugly. So what's next? During the course of the relationship, I started to notice that things started to change.
Hello?
The final straw for me was I realized that the behaviors weren't getting better, they were getting worse. He would call me from jail, and I just didn't want to be with somebody that was in and out of jail so often. I didn't really have a breakup call per se.
Why are you yelling at me right now?
He would get mad and hang up, I would get mad and hang up.
Are you done?
It was more or less, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. Just stop calling me.
You know what? I'm done.
And then I made plans to move. Didn't want him to get out of jail and try to come back and find me. Instinctively, I said, I must get out of this situation while I have the opportunity to do so safely. By the time he would get out of jail, I could already be gone. I ended up just packing all my things and moving away. After I moved out of the apartment, a couple months later, I met someone else. And Greg and I were together for a while. He wanted me to live with him in his apartment, so I moved out of my mom's house and moved in with Greg. I became pregnant with my oldest daughter, so I pretty much was, living a new life. After Tony and I broke up, I did not hear from him. He remained in jail for quite some time. For something to do, Greg asked if I was interested in going to a monster truck show in Pittsburgh, and I had never been to one of those. And I said, okay. Yeah! We were sitting there, and I decided to get up and just stretch. And I happened to turn around. When I looked up, I saw Tony sitting there. And he was staring directly at me. And it's like our eyes met. It's like time stopped right then and there when I saw his face. What I saw, when I looked and saw his face, it was blank, it was dark, it was evil. It was absolutely evil. Looking at me as if, if I could, I would kill you. Didn't even blink, just stared. It absolutely spooked me to the core, and I turned away and sat down, and then I nudged Greg and I said, "Tony is here." And I never looked back again. We stayed for maybe 15 more minutes, and I said I wanted to leave, so we just simply got up and Greg took my hand and we walked out. I was pregnant at the time, so I was even more fearful that he would want to seek revenge maybe, or want to harm me in some way. So I spent the next several months until I had my daughter just kind of staying in our house. I didn't want to be out on the streets anymore because I didn't know where he was. About a year to maybe 2 years later, I was sitting at home with my daughter, and there was a knock on my door. There were two gentlemen at the door.
Special Agent Bartle with the FBI.
And they asked if they could speak to me. I said, "Okay, what is this about?" And they said, "Do you remember a gentleman by the name of Anthony Freiberger?"
Yes, please come in.
And they said, "Recently, we picked up Mr. Freiberger. He was on the streets. He was drunk. And they were picking him up for disorderly conduct. They took him down to the local police station.
Once he was in lockup, he started rambling.
And while he was sitting in the jail cell, he started telling them that he committed a murder." House. They asked if they could speak to me and told me that Tony had confessed to killing his last girlfriend prior to me, and her name was Norma. And they proceeded to say that allegedly he killed her because she woke him up. He was sleeping and he got angry and took the nunchucks and strangled her with them. At which point he took her body and put it inside of a drum, went and bought several batteries, drained them of the battery acid, poured the battery acid over her, took the drum in his car and buried her, and agreed to show them where he buried her.
You're sure that he's the one who...
He confessed, and he was also able to lead us to the remains and identify.
After that, he decided to tell them he killed before that. And then he confessed to killing Marcia. I was absolutely speechless. How did I not know that I was with someone like that? I had to just sit and absorb everything that I just heard and say, how did you not get that? How did you miss that? When all the signs were there, but I just didn't see it.
Unfortunately, that's not all.
The FBI agent said one of the reasons they were there is because they were looking at possibly profiling Tony as a serial killer. There's many unsolved murders that they were possibly trying to maybe link him to, if they could.
How can I help?
We have this book of missing persons.
Was there any names that sounded familiar to me? Was there anybody he ever mentioned? When the FBI left my house that day, they told me this is going to be a capital murder trial, which means they're seeking the death penalty. I just sat there, just speechless. I couldn't even react. I was disappointed in myself for not seeing what was right in front of me. At the same time, I felt relief that I was still alive. And then certainly, most importantly, the profound sadness and sorrow I felt for the people that had to suffer at his hands. He was living a few miles from me, working in a church, a Catholic church, and had a apparently a wife and kids, and gone on with his life like nothing ever happened, and they knocked on his door. I was at home and received a phone call from one of the detectives to tell me that he was sentenced to death, and I didn't really ask any questions. I didn't care to know where or when. Part of me does not support the death penalty, but in this situation where he has openly admitted to killing these women, I do support the death penalty for him. He should pay with his life, and it could never be enough for several innocent people that had to die. Anthony Feibiger, the Brookline sociopath on death row for 2 vicious slayings in the 1980s, wants the state to execute him. He says he's being tortured in prison by staying in one cell 23 hours a day. He doesn't want his life extended another second. He wants to be executed. Tony wanting to be executed because his living conditions are subpar on death row. If it's that torturous for him, they should continue to keep him alive. Because there's no amount of torture that can match what he inflicted in his life on innocent people. It is something to this day, 30 years later, that you just never forget. So it has impacted my life for the rest of my life. I have not been in contact with him since he was sentenced to death. I don't need or want to talk to him, see him. I can't even imagine what there would be to say. I don't know that he has ever been linked to any other unsolved murders, but it's a very real possibility that there are other victims out there, and we don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. So, that's something I think you live with forever, because you walked away from something that somebody else did not. I'm humble, I'm grateful. I don't know why, but I thank God I am here today to tell this story.